Hi, guys, and welcome to another wonderful podcast. And today I have one of the deepest thinkers that I know, which is Tarun. So, Tarun, why don't you just introduce yourself in three words? Like, what are three words that really describe your personality?
This is. I was not aware I'll have to use three words because I do long-winded stuff. But the three words can be. It can be inward first, trying.
Sorry, inward?
Inward first and trying.
Inward, first, and trying.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can probably rearrange it and bring it back to sequence, and the sequence would be trying to be inward first.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is a really interesting thing you touched upon there, that inward first trying. So what do you mean by inward?
Because what I have seen in general is that it is so easy to lay blame and move on.
Mm-hmm.
It is so easy to lay blame and move on. But if you think about it from a utility perspective, you gained nothing from that conclusion. You are still the same, which means that if you prod it, you can always conclude that, right? You can always conclude that, there is something wrong with the other person and you can move on. What if you ask the question first and asked, okay, I understand there is something deeply discomforting here, and one of us is probably in the wrong in some way. What if instead of laying blame first, which I can do anyway, what if I simply ask, how much of this was my doing? Yeah.
So basically you're saying that whenever maybe there's conflict, so we have to first ask ourselves that what have we done to trigger this person, instead of going on that other person is wrong.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, because if you think about simply from a utility perspective, you will gain something out of it. Mm-hmm. Even if you ask the question, how much of this is my doing, right? And even if you don't find an answer, and if you can faithfully put your hand on your heart and conclude that, none of this is my doing, then great. You have an even clearer conscience, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But more often than not, the reason why it is all the other person's fault is because you never bothered to ask the question, how much of this is my doing? Because even if you can't find, I'll tell you exactly what will happen the minute you ask yourself that question. Even if you can't find how much of this is your doing, you will be able to put some bizarrely specific percentage on it.
Okay.
It's very counterintuitive. I don't know what I did wrong, but how can I put a percentage on it? But
yeah.
So, do you want to do this exercise? We can do this exercise.
Sure, let's try it. Because I think one question I have is, suppose, especially in a toxic communication between two people, what happens is the other person isn't even willing to admit it. So maybe they will think that percentage of what they're doing wrong is maybe 10%.
Yeah.
So let's do that.
Before we go down what you touched upon right now, before we even go down that road, let's conclude the fact that the other person is not going to admit to any of this. And the whole objective of this exercise is to not even give any consolation, any understanding, or any birth to whether the other person is realizing this or not. It has nothing to do with the other person realizing it or not. It's their onus. If they realize it, they realize it. If they don't, they don't. The objective of this exercise is only to be able to live with yourself much better and with much more clarity, without affirmations and throwing random words that don't stick to yourself, right? That's the objective of this.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. I had a extremely manipulative, extremely narcissistic boss that I used to work for. I won't name the number of years, but it's not the current one. I would name the number of years, but it was a while back. Extremely narcissistic, extremely manipulative. But some of the actions that he would take, I wouldn't be able to understand how can an individual like this think or say something like that. And the instance that will help understand why this questioning that we were talking about earlier helps is because I realized that the reason why I disliked him the most is because he would not... Okay, we'll come to why. I just disliked him a lot.
Okay.
And I disliked him beyond the overt reasons for disliking him. He's narcissistic, good enough to be disliking him. He is demeaning to women, good enough to be disliking him.
Yeah.
But I disliked him even more than the amount of dislike that would come.
Okay.
Because of just those two elements. And I couldn't understand why. So again, over here, there is no reason for me to ask the question, is there something wrong with me? There is no reason to ask the question, because his narcissism and him being demeaning towards women is crowd affirmed by colleagues who are older and wiser than me. So there is no reason. There is low stakes. Why should I ask? Blame. Move on.
Yeah.
But when I ask myself the question, how much of this disliking that he is causing me, is there something about it at my end that I can sort? That's when I realized the reason why I dislike him more than how much I should or how much my colleagues did was because he trespassed over my boundaries.
Okay.
He and I didn't have a good sense of boundary setting. And he used to trespass over my boundaries all of the time, which used to make me hate him even more.
All right.
So that's when I realized the value of that question. Is how much of this is my doing? How much of this dislike is coming from an action of mine or an inaction of mine? That's when I realized, oh my God, I have a perennial problem with boundary setting.
Oh.
And that's just manifesting itself over here.
Makes sense. So that's like, once you asked this question, there was like this self-discovery that even in other relationships, not only with your boss,
always
this problem is there. Like, I think personally for me, I sometimes lack empathy. And that shows sometimes in my business, sometimes it shows in my social conversations. And over the years, I've worked on it and I've improved it. But when I had started out, I used to say things that were considered rude without even realizing that they were rude.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is what happens. The minute you ask yourself that question, how much of any of this is coming from inside, what happens is you don't stumble across incident-specific issues. You stumble across systemic issues. You will only stumble across systemic issues. And that's when you'll realize that asking this one question gives you one answer which unlocks 10,000 different issues in the back of your head.
Okay.
So as a result,
very deep thought. Yeah.
As a result,
there was an exercise for this?
Huh?
You said that there was an exercise to practice this?
Yeah, the exercise is which I just conducted on my own self. It is just a set of questions. I was going to ask you, tell me something, a situation where you disliked a person. Easy way of concluding that is, I dislike the person because dash.
Okay.
Instead of that, it was like, okay, no problem. I dislike the person. Absolutely fine. Human being. How much of this dislike or how much of whatever behavior is causing this effect inside of me, how much of that is probably something inside of me that is contributing towards it? Again, like I said, if you throw out social media from your life, it will be deeply unsettling in the beginning. But in reality, what happens is, this is where that concept of the next unit of pain is not as painful as the last unit of pain comes from.
Okay.
So the biggest reason why people don't ask that question, how much of this is my doing, is simply because they will find something deeply unsettling about themselves. And now they will have to live with it.
I mean, true, nobody wants to admit their imperfections, right? I mean,
exactly.
You won't always look away.
Obviously. But that's the thing. If you know how less you are, you become more than you used to be.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah. If you know how less you are, you become more than you used to be.
Wow. That is definitely deep. Yeah.
Isn't it? The minute I realized that I have a perennial boundary setting issue, I became more than the version of me that didn't know. He had a perennial boundary setting issue.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why people don't look inside, because they think what they will find is that they are less. But the reality is, the more you acknowledge and realize how less you are becoming more than the person who didn't realize this.
Exactly. Now, speaking of the boundary setting thing, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people do face that.
Yeah.
Especially in their work life, in their relationships. How did you fix that? How did you really deal with that?
Oh my God. Again, when I try to fix it, that's when I stumbled across another systemic issue.
Okay.
So, simple again question. Why do I have such a problem with boundary setting? What is boundary setting essentially? It's saying no. That's when I realized, oh my God, I have a problem in saying no. Again, perennially speaking, across space and time. That's when I sat down and I asked the question, okay, cool. What is it? Why are you saying no? Why do you feel like you want to say no? You are ending up saying yes. We know that. That's the problem. But why did you want to say no? Oh, because I wanted to have the evening for myself, uninterrupted by anyone else. I wanted to watch something that I wanted to watch, or I wanted to speak to someone that I wanted to speak to.
Yeah.
But he has mandated this, that every Friday I have to hang out with him. But the reason why he has mandated is that he is securing for his Friday evening. It does not take into account whether I want to do it or not. Correct. Yeah. And the reason why I want to say no here is because I am not having the Friday evening that I would like to have. That's the crux of the problem. And now I'm trying to phrase, okay, so what is going on over here? I realize that I am an extremely agreeable person. I don't want to displease people, which is again something that comes from childhood and how your parents are raised. We will touch on that later on. Truth of the matter is, I'm an extremely agreeable person and I don't want to displease people by saying no. But the speed at which every single time I am having to say yes when I want to say no, the speed at which it's racking up my inner agitation is not funny. I am thinking about the next Friday, this Monday, again, right? Because it has been 10 of those Fridays. So, one second. And because of this, that's when I started to realize, okay, when you imagine saying no, what are you actually doing? Step away from the act and look at what are you doing when you say no. And that's when I realized I was not saying no to him. I was saying yes to something else. That is what is happening. Yeah. And to an agreeable person, that is, yes.
That is gold, exactly.
That is perfect. So now when he's saying no, so we'll hang out this Friday, my brain is like, I have to use the word no, but I mean yes. I'm saying yes to pizza and a Netflix series this Friday evening.
But I think the next question that comes, right, even though you're saying yes to something else, oftentimes the other person will try to guilt you. Like, correct, this can happen in relationships or with working. Like, suppose, let's say your boss calls you every Saturday, even though they're not a part of your work hours. And then when you say no, then they'll say, oh, you're not working hard. Look at the other employees. Or in a relationship, maybe you're really tired or you have to wake up the next morning. You have to wake up pretty early. And your girlfriend or your wife asks you that, let's watch a movie. You say no, then they say that, oh my God, you don't love me anymore.
Yes.
I mean, that's a line that a lot of people hear. How do you deal with the guilt?
So first we'll come to that, we'll come to the guilt part for sure. Even when we realize that we are saying yes to something else and no to this person, at the moment when you have to say no, it'll still be a lot of work. How do you overcome that, right? Because again, he's going to ask you. He will say no today. Next Friday, he's going to ask you again. You'll have to say no today. And every instance when you have to say no, you are essentially going against your system programming. So it will cause a lot of friction. How you can overcome that, how I was able to overcome that, is I realized that boundary setting is not a forever drill. This is not a fire drill that you have to run every month for them to realize what to do when you have a fire. Boundary setting is exactly like a fire drill. You only have to run it a couple of times. And then they will realize it automatically. So when I'm saying no on the moment, the reason why there is no friction is because I'm realizing I only have to say 3 more no's. And then the boundary will be set. And the reason why you are having so much friction is not because of you saying no, but because of your system thinking, oh my God, I will have to say no forever. But that is not how boundaries are set, right?
True.
You do it 2 to 3 times and the person gets it. The bad part about boundary setting is that the reason why you have to set boundaries are specifically the people who will ignore them.
True.
That's the problem. Which makes it even more. The people with whom you don't need to set boundaries, you will never even have to learn how to set boundaries.
But oftentimes, like, people close to you also can cross boundaries. Right?
Yeah, so that brings us to the previous question that you asked. Okay, can you repeat that question? The whole guilt that
I think majorly I was talking about the guilt tripping that they do, and this often can happen with partners or maybe in a workspace, and oftentimes you can't really escape that in the long run, right? Because even after saying no 3 times, either what will happen is they will be really angry at you and that resentment will build, or maybe you will only feel so guilty that next time you want to say no, you end up saying yes. And this especially can come when developing a new habit also, right? Let's say tomorrow I decided I want to go on 6 a.m. runs from now. And when I want to go on 6 a.m. runs, obviously I would have to sleep early. And when I'm changing my schedule, so let's say if I was talking to my girlfriend at 1 a.m., now I have to start wrapping up the conversation at 10 p.m. So yeah, over there that guilt comes off. So how do you deal with that?
Let me ask you a tangential question which will answer this.
Sure.
Can you remember the last time that you said a truth?
Can I remember? Yeah.
When was it, and can you tell us what it was? You can keep the context out. Yeah, just tell the truth.
By truth, in which scenario? Like, obviously there are so many truths, right?
Yeah.
So what kind of truth are you specifically referring to?
Truth of a kind that makes you I'm not talking about a scientific fact, for sure. Sunrise I'm not talking about those truths.
Yeah.
I'm talking about something that is deeply true for you and you had not yet shared that before.
Okay, something deeply true.
For you as an individual. I'll give you an example. I recently realized that I am more work in progress than I thought I was. This is a deep truth for me. And then I said it to the person in front of whom I had fallen short. That, hey, the reason why this happened is because I never realized, I was too cocky. I never realized that I am more work in progress than I thought I was. You see, that is a truth being communicated. An instance like this, can you remember?
I think so. I think one truth that I recently realized, I haven't really communicated it to anyone, but I realized that I started going to the gym and started fitness because I wanted to look more, say, physically attractive compared to the standards of today.
Yeah.
But now I actually go to the gym because it's fun doing that. So that insecurity has faded.
Yeah.
And one more truth is that I started Speak with Sumit to maybe make a difference and help people with public speaking and help people communicate. But I also recently realized that now I'm helping people, but they also have to understand the value of that. That's why I've increased my prices for my coaching and all, because I understand the value I'm offering. Before it was like, oh, but you want to help people, how can you charge them, how can you do this? But now I think that, look, whoever wants your help will pay the price, and that's completely fine. So I think these are two truths that I have realized.
Yeah. So when you raised your prices, did you feel guilty about it?
I didn't feel guilty. It was more afraid than guilty that, oh, will they buy? I think that was one of the things.
Yeah, absolutely. So you see, and that is the larger point here as well.
Yeah.
When you're saying no, that because I want to go run in the morning, I have to wrap up the call sooner and I feel guilty about it. The reason why you feel guilty about it has nothing to do with the call or the run or her or 1 a.m. It is because what you're saying is not the truth.
Okay.
You're not telling her the full context. You are not inviting her into your truth.
Okay.
Your truth is what? I want to run at 6 a.m. Why 6 a.m.? There is a specific reason for that, why it has come 6 a.m.
Yeah.
People run in the evenings as well, right?
Exactly.
It's specific to you for some reason. Why 6 a.m.? And as a result of that, have you told her this whole thinking? No. You are just telling her, let's wrap up this now so I can run at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
So it is going to sound like I am less important than the run, which is something that happened to me yesterday also.
Okay.
I am less important than the run. But that is not what is actually happening, right?
Yeah.
What happens if you tell her, why 6 a.m.? Why now? what do you think is going to happen after that? And obviously, this is being told. There are two parts about. There are two parts about telling someone, especially your partner. There are two parts about telling them something deeply discomforting. This is not that deeply discomforting, but the rule still applies.
Okay.
You have to phrase it better because this is your girlfriend.
Yeah.
This is the person, this is your partner. This is the only person who deserves the effort required to phrase it better. That no one else deserves it. Second is, you have to pick the moment. All lessons can be taught. All lessons can't be taught all of the time.
Okay.
That's what the problem is. When a person is drowning, and I'm borrowing heavily from the things that I've read, when a person is drowning, that's not the time to teach them how to swim. But that doesn't mean that that person doesn't want to learn how to swim.
Fair, yeah.
But you concluded that they don't want to learn how to swim. If you bring it to them on a Sunday evening when they're thinking about a special activity to learn, what do you think they're going to say no to this?
I mean, yeah, they would learn swimming because it's a time for it, yeah.
Yeah, so your conclusion was wrong. Which means that if you are trying to tell something to someone, A, you have to phrase it better, and B, you have to know the moment of when to say this.
True.
The moment has to be teachable as well. The lesson must be framed in a manner which takes into account what you feel for them, who they are to you. And second, the moment that you pick also has to be. So now, coming back to the original point, if you do this and you say it when it is a good moment, correct moment. I learned this from, I don't remember who, but that person said that the biggest things that people screw it up in relationships is that they bring up something that they hate about one another when they are drunk at 3 a.m. in the night at a friend's party. That's why things collapse.
Yeah.
And the reason why that happened is because they didn't bring it up 3 days ago when they were well rested on a Sunday morning and having picnic in the park. If they brought it up then, both of them would have had the psychological capacity to frame it in a better way.
Yeah.
The setting is very conducive for a pleasant conversation. So they would go further in that. Without the thing would get addressed without it destroying the whole thing.
So it's also like when you say pick the right moment, right? A question that comes to mind is the right moment where everything is pleasant and you bring up something uncomfortable? Because usually people think that, hey, if everything is going great right now, if I bring up this topic that is probably causing discomfort, it might ruin the mood. I think a lot of people think that, right?
Okay, cool. First part of all of this is, where are you coming from? That is where all of this comes from.
Yeah.
Are you coming from a place where you want to tell her, hey, I am going to go run tomorrow morning and I don't want this call anymore at 1 a.m. If you're coming from there, no matter what moment and what editing you take, it's not going to work. Because it doesn't matter what words you say and when you say it, it only matters where you came from. That is the thing. Your intention is the God that speaks through you. So whatever your intention is, you won't be able to mask it.
Makes sense.
Which is why first you have to figure out, where is this coming from? Is this coming from the fact that I feel bothered that she's calling me at 1 a.m. so I can't go running tomorrow morning? Or is it bothered by the fact that I am trying to do something and she's in my way? Which is this? She is a place of bother. She is a place of hindrance. Which is this? And if you truly like this person, you will eventually find out that no. What is really happening is that I want something new right now, and our existing dynamic is not really supporting it properly. Which simply means that this is a conversation. Nobody is bothering, nobody is hindering. This is a new conversation to be had. It's just like you running at 6 a.m. in a relationship where you have never run at 6 a.m. for 3 years, for example. Let's imagine you're in a relationship for 3 years and you've never run at 6 a.m. in those 3 years, right? The conversation of how to go about this is the same conversation about how to introduce a new sofa in a 3-year-old relationship.
Okay.
Isn't it? It's the same thing. It's just a new element. Yeah. It is that basic. But see how much is getting piled up on top of that. Guilt, when, how, maths, psychology, all of this getting piled up inside only because you're not asking yourself the question, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
And you're not telling this properly to this person.
So it's all about also downsizing the problem? Is that something?
No. I am not actively downsizing it.
Okay.
I am trying to realize what the problem is, and in the process realizing that it is a much smaller thing than I thought it was.
Fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why you were talking about the guilt that comes with it, no? And the reason why I asked you when was the last time that you said a deep truth about yourself and explained why it is so. You won't feel guilt. That's what I was coming at. If you tell them your truth and the context behind it and where you're coming from and communicate it with them, A, they will understand. B, you won't have guilt. And once you remove the guilt from the equation, you are more likely to have the conversation sooner rather than later.
Yeah. And I think most people just want to be understood, and they think that others can't understand, but they don't provide entire context.
Yep.
Yeah,
this is literally something that is happening to me right now, which is why even more understanding of the same stuff.
So there are like some exercise that you recommend doing before having tough conversations. Like a lot of people have tough conversations, even something like breaking to their kids that they might be having a divorce or something like that. So how do you prepare for tough conversations?
I can't share about that one, breaking to kids about divorce and stuff. I'm not married and I don't have kids, so I can't say on that behalf. I can only say on the behalf of normal stuff.
I was talking like a template sort of thing that people can take away when they're having a tough conversation. This is just an example.
Okay, cool. Oh, so you're talking about how to go about a tough conversation or how you to prepare yourself
for one? Like suppose, let's say, let's keep it simple.
Yeah.
Suppose if there was something like maybe somebody had an accident.
Yes.
Right? And I had to inform the family member. So what do I do to prepare for that? And how do I get ready to say the right things? Because you talked about phrasing it properly and you also talked about the right time to address things.
Yeah.
So what can I do? Or what can people do to prepare for tough conversations?
Cool. Again, like most things, this is also very simple.
Okay.
If something like that has happened, and it's very bizarre that you brought up an accident situation, because I can tell you how to do it very badly because my friend has done it. And then I can tell you how to not do it like this.
Okay.
I had a gigantic accident when I was a kid on a bike, going extremely fast on a wet road that I shouldn't have been. As a result of that, I have a gigantic stitch over here.
Okay.
So my head was cracked open and I was unconscious, and my friend with whom I was driving, he somehow dragged me to the hospital. Now he's sitting with me in the hospital, and he calls one of my other friends who lives near my house so that he can go and inform my parents about this.
Yeah.
So he calls my other friend who shall remain nameless, because what a hopeless anyway, who shall remain nameless.
Okay.
He tells my other friend that, hey, this is what has happened. Tarun had an accident. He has a head injury. He was bleeding quite a lot, but the doctor said that there has been no damage to the brain itself. It's just the skull and we can sort it out. My friend, imagine, you are that friend, right? And you just received this information and you have to go tell my parents about this. What are you going to lead with? We will come to that later. What you're supposed to lead with. What he did was he went down under my house and he started screaming, Tarun is unconscious for 3 hours and he had a head injury.
Oh my God.
If you say that, it does not matter where you came from. Is this a teachable moment? None of that matters. It's going to go sideways. That is how you do it badly.
Badly, yeah.
So now if you approach the same situation again, if you ask yourself only one question, what do I want to achieve with this tough thing that I have to say? What do I want to achieve? I want to tell his parents that they shouldn't worry, but something has happened. But they shouldn't worry. Shouldn't worry is the bread, something has happened is the filling. Yeah. Sandwich between. If you just try to bite into an avocado, it's going to taste horrendous.
Okay.
But if you put it inside of an avocado prawn sandwich, it works. You have to sandwich it in with what you are trying to achieve in that conversation. So the same situation, what am I trying to tell? okay, Tarun has had an accident, it was a head injury and he's unconscious. But the doctor said he's fine. Hey auntie, this has happened, but the doctor said he's fine. Predictability, sharing what the medical professional is sharing, will completely dampen the whole situation. So in the same way, again, I'm going to have a tough conversation with someone extremely soon. And it's a professional, it's an office situation thing. And the objective is extremely simple. What do I want to achieve with this? And that should lead. And if hand to God, if you're not a horrible person, what you're trying to achieve is not going to be something that is damaging.
Yeah.
So more often than not, most of us are set. Most of us are already preemptively in a position of having tough conversations. Yeah. So that's how you can go about a tough conversation, and that's how you can avoid the guilt coming out of it, is by making sure that enough of your truth is inside it, and you framed it in a manner that made sure what you wanted to achieve, which anyway was coming from a good place. If you miss out how much of your truth you should be saying and don't clarify where is the place that you're coming from for yourself, then this is going to be perennially tough. It is never going to be easy. And you will, whatever you say, rockstar song will play in the background. Jo bhi main kehna chahu, barbaad kar. Alfaz will always be your truth.
I think this is definitely quite deep insight, where it's as simple as telling the truth with context at the right time and knowing what to achieve with the conversation.
Something else also that I've realized extremely recently, because even if you take care of all of these three things, it can be achieved, it can be perceived in a wrong way.
Okay.
It can be perceived in a wrong way. And I don't remember, did we speak about this earlier or did we speak about this after we started to talk, is when you said that even though you know the worth of your offerings, a lot of people are asking you, no, this is not worth so much, etc., etc. It touches upon, both of these are the same thing. Even if you tell your truth and you're coming from the right place, even then it can backfire. It is the same thing that is playing out in when you know the worth of your offerings and you're sharing with them. Some people are still misjudging this, raising their flags and saying, this is not accurate, etc. What is happening in both of these situations is only one thing, which is there are a stack of meanings. Meaning is not singular. There are a stack of meanings. People can only meet you where they have met themselves.
Okay.
So if there are 6 meanings in between the surface, the surface meaning of what Sumit means, that this costs this much, and the deepest meaning of what Sumit means of why it costs this much, they can only meet you where they have met themselves. If they have never seen something that is worth that much within themselves, they will never be able to digest how can something cost that much.
Fair. So anchors basically, like if somebody comes from say a tier 2 city and goes to third wave and gets a coffee, they would probably get like a shock. They would be in shock.
What do you mean 300 rupees for a third wave coffee?
Yeah.
They can only meet you at the depth that they have met themselves. To my father, a 6 crore Lamborghini is what? That is 15 plots. See what he is coming up for the worth of 6 crore. My head is telling 6 crore is a justifiable price for a Lamborghini. To my father, 6 crore is 15 plots in the town that I came from. See, his meaning and my meaning are meeting together at the monetary value of 6 crores.
Yeah.
But they are so different from one another. We're talking about the same thing. And that's the same thing that happens even if you're coming from the right place and you say it and you say your truth with all of the context. The chances of it not being received in the way that you meant it is extremely high, because they can only meet you at where they have met themselves. The best analogy that I could think of to help myself understand this was, imagine you have watched all of the Marvel Universe movies. From the first Iron Man to Scarlet Witch and everything else, and now you're sitting and watching Endgame.
Yeah.
Cool. Your friend who has not watched any of this and is watching Endgame, will both of you have the same reaction when Captain America wields Thor's hammer?
No, definitely not.
Same thing. And yet you are going hysterical. and he is indifferent. That is the difference between meeting someone else where they have met themselves.
Yeah.
If they don't have all of this context in the realm of them trying to figure out something about their life by themselves, if they haven't done this, it won't matter what you say and where you come from. Which means that the third thing that you have to keep acknowledgement of in your mind is that, yes, I will say it from the place of a good meaning. Yes, I will try to convey my truth in as much depth as possible.
Yeah.
But once I have done it, in that domain, once it is out of me, in that domain, I am simply awareness. Does that make sense?
It does. Because reality is subjective, right? Because when you're buying the 6 crore Lamborghini,
yes,
you're not just buying the Lamborghini, you're buying the respect. You're buying, say...
all of the other things that it means to me.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have bought the Lamborghini, for example. I haven't. I don't know how long will it take.
You will.
Yes.
In the future, near future.
Imagine I have bought the Lamborghini. And to me, it means that this is the greatest experience that a human being can have.
Yeah.
That is what it means to me. Someone else throws an egg on it or scratches it. Why? It's because they are not privy to what I think about this. They are privy to what they think about it. Which means that once I have communicated all of this, in the world where somebody throws an egg at this, I am not going to be controlling about it. I am not going to try and maneuver their behavior. I'm not going to try and impose my strength on top of them.
Yeah.
In that domain, I am simply going to be awareness. In that place, I am only a person that is aware of the fact that there exists a world where someone can throw egg on the greatest experience a human can have. So once you have shared all of this stuff and it is received badly, it is no longer a reflection of you.
That's fair. Okay. Then I think when that happens, it also matters who's in your circle, right? In your circle, are people there who are maybe understanding what you have to say or at the same mental level as you? Or are there someone who's not so serious with life? And when you have that kind of circle, no matter how deep of a thinker you are, you will always be undermined. And in fact, maybe your intelligence would be something people would make fun of. They would be like, oh, always he's
it's
lost in thought.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Did that happen to you?
Oh, I have actively removed a whole group of friends that at that point in time, they were my only friends.
Okay.
But I have removed all of them. And the reason, and this comes back to, this actually reinforces why you should do this, is because you raised a very valid point. If you say it like this and they don't get it, what you are thinking that you are alienated and you won't find friends. But that is not the truth. What this is, it's a great filtering mechanism. It's a feedback loop. When you behave like this and when you are true and you've conducted yourself like that, and they come back and joke about you, and they don't get it at all, it is the world telling you that you are with wrong people. It's a great filtering mechanism.
It does make sense,
Yeah, there's an active experiment that I'm running right now, which I'm succeeding at, is that I am increasingly being more and more myself at the parties that I'm invited to.
Okay.
Which I have started to see has reduced the number of parties that I'm getting invited to.
Okay.
On the surface, it will look like a bad thing, right? I am getting invited to less parties.
Yeah.
But in reality, if you look at it, you will see I am only getting invited to those parties where I can be completely myself. Isn't it? Which world do you want to live in? A world where you get 50 invites to parties but you can't be yourself? Or a world where you will be invited to 3 parties but you can be completely yourself?
Exactly, yeah. I think the second one. The one where you are your real self.
Yes.
I think it's more like when you try to impress everyone and try to be liked by everyone.
Yes.
You are never truly liked by anyone.
Yeah. There's a great line which says Elvis died and Elvis impersonated. Elvis was whoever he was when he was beginning. People started to like one of those versions, and then he died impersonating that version.
That was, because
dead on a toilet seat.
That was popular. He was scared. He was scared of being himself. Yeah.
Dead on a toilet seat. Do you want that? No.
I think then one final question that would make a lot of sense in this whole boundary setting exercise is that, are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I used to be an introvert, After that, a lot of things happened in my formative years,
Mm-hmm.
which is how I ended up becoming an extrovert. I was left to fend for myself for extended periods of time, which is how I ended up becoming an extrovert. And I was that for an extended period of time. And after a period of time, when your personality slowly starts to set in itself, meaning it had all the ingredients and the foundation was laid, but the cement was not dry yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Once it starts to dry up, that's when you start to realize which is which.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I identify as a person who is an introvert, but has his extrovert skills for sale. For someone who would like to buy them, because I'm not interested in keeping them. But yeah, they do help a lot.
The reason I asked you that is because for an introvert to say actively cut people from their life, they always have the fear that, hey, look, it was really hard to find the friends I have right now.
Yeah.
And even though they don't resonate with me, how do I even go about finding new friends? I know I have to cut them out, but how do I do that? And that's the biggest fear. I think maybe a decade ago, even I had that fear. And how would you go around dealing with that?
So when I did it, it was due to extreme frustration. It was a result of complete and absolute frustration. What was the major driver in how easy it was? Because I was just pissed at all of them. In truth, there is this concept that that Chris Williamson and Alex Hormozy talk about this period of loneliness. And every person who is trying to be better and achieve something significant and true, and not weekend to weekend intoxication, for example, will experience this. Most probably multiple times in their lives. And they were defining this period as, you no longer belong to your current set of friends, but yet you don't have the set of achievements to qualify for your next. Yeah. So this period, for example, when I detached with all of them, there was a year and a half or 2 years before I could find another friend.
Okay.
And then it took 1 more year for me to find all of you guys. So what is happening? Yeah. So what is happening in those 3-4 years of me realizing that I don't want these friends, then me cutting them off, then me eventually finding one friend, then me eventually finding all of you guys. What happened in those 4 years is that whatever today I am telling you is something that I learned in those 4 years.
Okay.
And as a result of that period of loneliness, I qualified to be friends with all of you guys. Because now I had the set of capabilities to sit at the table.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to jump ship, you have to first kind of upgrade yourself. And that's where
100%.
Thinking inward and just
all
working on yourself.
All of that stuff. But something that will buoy you across is that there is a very simple prayer that I use all of the time, and it renders everything pointless. Is that it's actually compounded. It has actually grown. The size of the prayer has not grown. The thinking which arrives at that prayer has compounded slowly over a period of time. The first realization was me realizing that my longest relationship is going to be with myself. I am the person that I will have to answer to for the longest period of time. That was first. Okay, which means that I only have to be truthful to myself. That's part 2. I only have to be truthful to myself. Part 3, whoever I am is not a horrible person, which means if in the pursuit of being truthful to myself, I did damage to someone else, again, I won't be able to live with myself.
Yeah, true.
So we'll make sure that in the pursuit of being truthful, we don't cause damage in the world. And the final thing of realization was, okay, so if my first job is to be able to live with myself, then what can I truly claim?
What can you truly claim?
Truly claim, yeah.
Okay.
In any relationship, with your father, with your mother, with your girlfriend, husband, wife, boss, in any of them, they can sometimes come at you and say that, no, you are not enough. This is what you did at that point in time, and that is what you did at this point in time. And it's a cobweb of problems. You will never be able to defend any of them. But if you can defend one solid thing, it will keep everything intact.
That's true, yeah.
So yourself is going to come at you. You behaved like that over there and you did like that over there. Why did you say this to that person? Why did you act like this? Why didn't you say this? So it's going to come at you with very different angles, and you will lose balance and it will butcher you after that. But the only one thing that I have solace in is that whatever I did, in whatever ways I succeeded or whatever ways I fell short, I made sure that I tried.
Okay. Yeah. So that no regrets.
That's the only fundamental. And every time when my mind comes haunting at me, you see, if you hadn't said this, this wouldn't have happened. If you had said this, this would have happened. This is why you're here and this is why you're not there. All of this, it'll come haunting at you at full speed. But at that point in time, it's like, okay, I understand all of this. But can I be honest with myself and say, as long as I was here, as long as I was alive, I tried.
I really love this whole concept of the only person you're going to be in a relationship with for the longest time is yourself. Like,
yes,
oftentimes we externally go around looking for friendships, looking for like our girlfriends or boyfriends or partners, but we forget that we have to first love ourselves. We have to first be ourselves.
It is even worse. Not worse. It is even more. It has even more power than what it looks like. Because first realization is you have to live with only yourself. Second part is that how you are going to behave with yourself is how you're going to behave with all of the other relationships that you're chasing.
True. I think a great quote that comes to mind is that if you want butterflies, then don't go around chasing them because you'll never catch them.
Yeah.
Instead of that, build a garden and butterflies will come to you. And even if they don't, you still have a beautiful garden to yourself.
Yeah.
I think these are some great points we discussed. I think anyone facing a toxic relationship right now or maybe stuck in a toxic communication will be able to take some things from this and benefit. So if we have to wrap up the podcast, what are 3 main takeaways that you want people to really, I think 3 main action points for them that they can implement.
Okay.
Yeah.
First is the realization that trying to ask yourself these difficult questions is only going to be painful in the beginning. The first time you ask the question is going to be the most difficult time that you're doing this exercise. And if you remember that, it's the same thing. The first day of the gym is the most difficult. Rephrased it in other way is that no other day of the gym is as difficult as the first one. Which means the amount of friction that you're facing in the first time that you're doing this exercise, that's the only time you will face that much friction, which gives you some sort of solace. Oh, this is extremely difficult right now, but it is only going to be this difficult this instance. The next time it's going to be slightly better, easier, slightly more easier. While you're doing all of this, your brain is recording this and creating the neural networks, which will, in a very short period of time, will make it your default setting. It's not just that it will stop being difficult, it will become default. You won't even have to think about it. That is how far it will go in your capability by just doing this. That is the first one. Second one is, this will show you who you are, which means it will show you what are the things that matter and what are the things that don't. It reduces the world to zeros and ones, which means so many things, so many people who come to and try to talk to you, so many desires that manifest inside of you, they will all become zeros and ones. They will either matter in this or they will not matter, which makes the world extremely easy to navigate, and which in reality demolishes anxiety. Because anxiety is nothing but too many outcomes in front of you, too many paths in front of you. And the reason why there are so many paths in front of you is not because there are so many paths, is because you don't know which one do you want to go down the road. Hello. I think you cut off.
Sorry? Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
So that's part 2 of what you can gain out of this. And final part is that something that I learned again, and the reason why there's so much drive, the word truth must have been mentioned a bunch of times, is I realized it very recently that my search for truth is a defense mechanism.
Your search for truth is a defense mechanism?
Is a defense mechanism.
Okay.
Because previously, I used to frame the whole world by the inputs that I'm getting. If I said this and that person behaved like that, it means this and that. this is how I would create my world. But that world collapsed in on itself very violently, which came to the realization that when people behave like this, they mean 5 different things and not one, which then triggered my brain, because your brain is an extensively great defense mechanism creator.
Yeah.
And the minute your brain realizes these inputs upon which I am creating my whole world are not adequate, that's when your brain starts to ask the question behind that question. First question is, why did he look at me when I said that? The question behind, and that question did not help you.
Yeah, that didn't help.
Your world collapsed. So your brain goes beyond it. Why do human beings make that face? What does that mean neuropsychologically? What does that mean spiritually? What does that mean evolutionary psychologically, specific? So that is a higher truth that sits behind it. And the minute you create your world with those truths, the chances of it collapsing reduces a lot.
That's fair.
And that's when your brain starts to calm down, because it has based itself on stronger things than a human being's behavior on a Tuesday evening.
Yeah. So the foundations are strong because the questions are deeper.
Because you're looking for something deeper.
Yeah.
And which is why in the pursuit of looking for something deeper, you will find that there are more derivatives, there are more alternatives to what this can mean. Which means you have mapped the unknown a little bit more than you would have otherwise. So when something that you did not predict or expect happens, it no longer has an effect on you.
That is... Wow.
Yeah, it no longer has any effect on you, because your brain, what happens once you pursue truth for that far, what you will start to realize is only one thing. Is how many outcomes are actually possible of one conversation.
Okay.
How many outcomes are possible of one conversation? And the minute you realize that there are 55 different outcomes and 80 different ones that I don't even know, the minute you know just this much, whatever happens in the outcome ceases to have an effect on you. Because A, it could have gone 55 ways. Yeah. So here is one of 55. Or B, it could have gone one of 80 ways that I don't know. So it is here one of 80. Congratulations. The conversation went in a completely different way than the one that you had expected. However, you have mapped the world more.
I think ultimately that is what's important, right? Each conversation teaches you a truth.
Yeah.
And most people ignore the truth and they just focus on that particular conversation.
Yeah, what does this specific thing mean? But this specific thing will never happen again. It won't give you any utility. Anyways, yeah.
I think these have been really great insights, Tarun, first of all. And really thank you for joining the podcast. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
And
thank you so much.
Yeah, I think I would also thank the audience for having maybe a look at this conversation, and I want you guys to implement these things. So with this, we'll be wrapping up the podcast. And for more such deep conversations, do subscribe to the channel. We talk about public speaking, we talk about communication, and also a lot of inward thinking. So, okay, with that, we'll tune out. Thank you, guys.